It's the Extremist movie debate.
No, you don't.
And tonight we're talking 2017 Daddy's Home 2.
I'm Joe.
I'm Ethan, and one of us is going to love it, one of us is going to hate it.
Let the coin decide their fate.
Oh, almost lost it. I hate it.
I love it. Hey guys, don't get your life tangled into a snowblower. There's spoilers ahead.
It's a weird steak quarter. It looks like a griffin. I thought it was an eagle.
Let's see. It's a cool Harry Potter coin you got.
Yeah, all right.
All right, and this movie...
It's not a griffin. That's like a goose.
I'll call it a griffin. There's a state with a griffin.
Yeah, it's a... I don't know. So this movie currently holds a 17% on Rotten Tomatoes.
17?
17. Yeah, 17.
It's a real Sister Act 2 situation.
Back in the habit.
Percent on Rotten Tomatoes. Joe, since you love this movie, this first question comes to you. And I'm going to butcher this name, and I am so sorry to this person. This comes from Rad Hyan Simon Peli from Now Toronto.
Okay. Canadian names, that's all right.
It's the most Canadian name next to Drake. Rad Hyan says, returning from Hollywood...
Rad?
R-A-D-H-E-Y-A-N is the first name. Rad Hyan.
Well, he should just go by Rad. That'd be a cool name.
I'd go by Hi, bro. 420. So, Rad says, returning from Hollywood exile after all that racism and sexist hate spewing and domestic violence, Gibson's first on-screen role in a major studio film since 2010 has the actor playing a hyper-masculine, roughhousing womanizer who we gladly hate. And there are weird moments where Gibson's Kurt tries to tell kids a joke about two dead hookers, uses bring the hammer down as disciplinary advice when dealing with a teen girl, and mentors his grandson on how to grope. So, please briefly speak on the potential impact and or dangers in using these types of jokes in an accessible PG-13 rated film for the masses. You have 1 minute.
Well, I mean, you don't want to sanitize, like, characters. You don't want to sanitize the image of, like, crude and rude and people who cross lines. You don't want to sanitize that because then you don't know how to handle it when you encounter that in real life. They're not condoning this behavior in the movie. The movie's actually condemning this kind of behavior if you actually watch it. And it's not until the end when Mel Gibson actually, like, gives in and crosses to the other side and, like, shows his son some, like, physical, like, affection and some actual, like, love that you see him start to sort of redeem himself. He's not redeemable before that. So with the jokes and with the groping and with the womanizing, none of that stuff makes him look cool. It all makes him look sad and dated, and that's exactly what they're trying to do, I think. It might be unfortunate that Mel Gibson is the actor they chose to put in this movie, but overall, that is not Mel Gibson. Like, he's playing a character, and the character was written before Mel Gibson was attached to it. So the character itself is just...
Okay, thanks, Joe. Ethan, you have 30 seconds to respond.
Yeah, like, it's stunt casting to the most extreme, and the problem is that they don't actually condemn it that hard. If anything, like, he's a shuttle pilot. Everybody loves him. He consistently gets laid throughout this movie. His arc really never really comes around to regretting anything that he does. Most that he can do is try to almost stutter out like an I love you or an I'm sorry, and he barely accomplishes that. So there's really no check on his character. It's like Trump surrounded by the House of Representatives. Everyone's just kind of rolling their eyes. You can tell they all hate him.
I'm sorry, Ethan, I have to cut you off there. I'm really interested in seeing where that was going, but Joe, you have 15 seconds to respond.
But I think that this is more true to life because it's not tied up in a bow and he doesn't have a complete arc, and that's because Mark Wahlberg won't allow it to, because Mark Wahlberg hates him and he has to live with that. So that is the condemnation right there. His son does not love him.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Ethan, you have a final 15 to respond.
His son doesn't love him, but we don't see how that ruins anything in his life because he's still fairly successful in his life by his own standards. And so what we see is like a whole bunch of people just kind of giving him a free pass. It's not like It's Always Sunny where everybody is a despicable character, but everybody around them absolutely hates them, and that makes it work, and that makes it acceptable.
Thank you, Ethan.
The opposite.
Thanks, Ethan. All right, and this next question is actually for you. This comes from a favorite of the show, James Berdinelli.
Jimmy B.
Yeah, Jimmy B.
Nope, you're not allowed to nickname him.
From realviews.net.
Wait, what's his name? Who is it?
James James Berardinelli.
Oh, Jesus.
James Burden. That's such a Berard. It's not a natural sound. Sorry. From RealViews.net says, seen as purely a holiday comedy, Daddy's Home 2 works fine. It doesn't redefine the genre or do anything outlandish. And also says, it's not going to win any awards, but there are worse ways to get some cheap laughs and the warm, fuzzy feeling that comes with any rendition of Kumbaya. So, because a film successfully gives a few chuckles or laughs or heartfelt moments, is that just cause to not judge the film as harshly or cynically as we would any other film that's put out there? You have 1 minute.
It's one thing to have a perfectly harmless movie, but when that perfectly harmless movie also has themes of, rampant sexism and child abuse, like we're talking about, also including a character going back to Mel Gibson who was also, rampant sexist asshole. So by putting him in this movie, you're hoping that maybe they can sort of redeem him and they're not just going to normalize him the whole time, but instead they do in fact normalize him the whole time. It's not just because, oh, look at this character and how mean he's being. Nobody is reacting harshly enough as they should in real life in order to condemn that behavior. And so that becomes insulting. So then what you're left with is hopefully a movie that can redeem itself by making you, guttural laugh the entire time. But at best you have kind of straight chuckles, because if you can condemn any other part of this movie, it's that the pacing feels really off. It's that you have moments where it feels like almost Aaron Sorkin is trying to do comedy, where it's just so fast and quickly edited that, if they kept it up this whole movie, if they kept up that momentum of it, you might catch some laughs here and there and it would be really fun and you think this is a really quick-witted, funny movie. But instead, then it just slows
Okay, I'm sorry,
the fuck
Ethan, I have to
down so
cut
they
you
can
off
deal with
there.
a thermostat.
Thank you. Joe referenced that at my apartment earlier.
There you
go. Joe, you have 30 seconds to respond.
I really loved the thermostat scene, actually. I laughed out
Which
loud.
one?
And also, I think the issue with Ethan is Ethan didn't see the first movie, so a lot of the callbacks to the first movie that were really funny for me, because I actually watched the first one.
Shouldn't have to see the first movie.
Well, you should, because it's a sequel. So the callbacks that made me laugh, Ethan was just sitting there like a dumb fuck because he didn't know what was going on. Secondly, they do not normalize, and I think this is almost like a cautionary tale of when you do normalize things, because you see John Lithgow and you see Will Ferrell bending over backwards to try to win Kurt's affection.
Okay, thanks,
but
Joe.
that's
I'm
not
going to have to
happening.
cut you off there. And before we move on, I'm going to need you to stop hurling personal insults at Ethan. You called Ethan a dumb fuck, and we can't have that. This is a family-friendly podcast.
No, I didn't.
Or
Thank
webcast.
you.
All right.
Well, maybe it
Being
shouldn't
a
be
real
one.
Mel Gibson. See, that's exactly
Yeah.
what this movie did not do, is they did not have a character come right out and say, hey, Mel Gibson, you're being an asshole. Instead, everyone just kind of said, ugh, let's just leave him alone and let him do his thing, as if that is okay. I'm sorry, I'm just assuming that there's time going here,
No.
but there's not. So
That's
let's just call that.
15 seconds.
I'm going to call that 15 seconds.
I'm giving you
It's fine.
15 seconds.
Go, Joe, you're fine.
I just don't like Joe, so I want you to
This
do
is-
30
I
more minutes.
appreciate that, because he's
All right,
being
Joe, start
very
talking.
rude.
Joe, you're on the clock.
No, this is Ethan's 15 seconds. I don't want you guys to stack the deck against Ethan for some reason.
I mean, it's fitting that you would steal my 15 seconds. That is very true to your character and to this movie and your love for this movie.
All right, Joe, you just wasted your 15
okay,
seconds.
no, I have
and
my
we're-
15 seconds now.
No, that was it.
That was
No,
it.
that was Ethan's
You
15
used it
seconds.
to bash me.
Yeah, I'm going to give you guys 4 minutes to discuss and go.
Jesus Christ, Jeff was just having a conversation with you about how bad the movie was.
I think that you were just forfeiting
And
your
on top
time,
of
so
that,
you were just filling it because, we don't like dead air.
You're saying the guy, this character, so Mel Gibson's character, who calls his son to try to get together with him at Christmas and is noticeably flinching when his grandkids do not love him.
He's
and do not
only
like him.
calling his son to get together at Christmas because he's worried that the kids are being raised by essentially a pansy.
No, because he doesn't know any of that prior.
That's exactly what he knows. They reveal that in this movie.
They don't.
Absolutely
he
reveal
learns
that in this
when
movie.
he arrives.
No,
he learns that when he arrives, and then you can see how he has no. Okay,
Then
no,
what other
explain.
reason?
No,
What other reason is he there?
Please explain to me how you think that he is there because of pansies raising his
Because
kids.
literally in the beginning of the third act, Mark Wahlberg calls him out on it and says, you just call me out of the blue every couple of years, and now you just realize, oh shit, all of a sudden my kids are being raised by somebody else, and I don't want to know, don't think that they're being raised right, so I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to show them what's what, and show them how to be a strong, tough man.
Okay.
I don't remember what they said, because the movie's not memorable.
So you're referencing something in the third act and in the first act, which you just said you only call every few years, so he would not have known of Will Ferrell's existence when he called and when he steamrolled his
Google,
way
dude.
into it. Fuck you. You think
What?
he's Googling?
Yeah,
that is
he
such a
flew
goddamn
the-
stretch.
He flew
That
the
is such
space
a
shuttle.
that is such a
Maybe
goddamn stretch,
he was
Ethan.
piloting a
And you
drone
have
up
now
above.
backed yourself into a corner of stupidity because you made an assumption about this movie.
No.
He is there.
Because when
He
this
is
mise
there.
goes out of its way to point
He
out that
is
that is
there.
his sole motivation for being there, what is his motivation for being there then? Does he ever feel guilty?
Yes, he does.
Never
and
at
that's
any
the
point
thing.
feels
He's
guilty.
there because he walks in.
His whole goal, as soon as he gets there,
why would he
is to start splitting them apart.
Listen, because why would he try to tell that dead hooker joke unless he was feeling threatened? Because he was not Grandpa.
All he is
John
doing,
Lithgow
he is
was
exactly
Grandpa.
the same person
So
he
now,
has always been, as this movie has created, and he arrives and he sees the situation is exactly what he expected when he arrived, and he does his best to drive a wedge, to actually be the antagonist, and to break them apart. And that is his main goal for being there for Christmas. That is why
because
he wants to get them into a small place. He goes and gets an AirBNB so they can all be together and he can rip them apart.
Because he wants to become the sole Grandpa. He wants to be Poppy. That's why he's doing that. Not because
El Padre.
El Padre. That's who he wants to be. So like.
I don't think he wants to be. If he wanted to be, he would make an effort to be there.
And that's why he's there.
What he doesn't want is he doesn't want the kids to be calling other people Poppy. He doesn't approve of these other people.
This is what shows that he's a complex character. He does not give a shit until somebody else has already taken that place. Because if he would have showed up and they would have loved him.
That doesn't make him complex. That just makes him an asshole.
Yeah, he's a complex asshole. So if he would have just showed up,
you don't just say that person's an asshole.
And they all would have said,
I want to know more about you. You say that person's an asshole. Go fuck yourself, and you walk the other direction.
Thank you so much, Grandpa. I'm so glad you're here. He would have been out of there because there's nothing like at stake there. So as soon as he sees how replaceable he is, that's when he starts feeling bad.
The best endgame you can come up with this argument is that he might possibly care about the future of his grandchildren. That is the only thing that is redeeming about what you're saying.
Otherwise, he wouldn't essentially be trying to say, I love you to Mark Wahlberg the whole time. He's just inability.
He doesn't give a fuck about Mark Wahlberg.
No, he does.
No,
why would he kiss him at the end? Why would he kiss him? Why would he kiss him at the end? Why would he kiss him at the end?
He arrives.
Answer the goddamn question.
Because throughout this movie, that is his arc, is he comes to see that maybe I was a little bit of an asshole. Which, great. I'm glad that they do confront that in this movie. However,
you get that right at the beginning
nobody else really fucking confronts that in this movie. Everybody should be aggressively against his behavior, and nobody is. Everybody still welcomes him with open arms. Nobody should be doing that at all.
Because everybody's tiptoeing because he's family. They're tiptoeing around him for the sake of Mark Wahlberg. They're not tiptoeing around him because they like Mel Gibson. They're tiptoeing around him because he's Mark Wahlberg's dad, and they all love Mark Wahlberg's character. They love Dusty, and that is why they're tiptoeing around him. This is a family issue in a lot of families.
There seems to be a lot to unpack here. Guys, how did you actually feel about this movie?
I like this movie.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah, no. I mean, like the second reviewer said, like
James Bertinelli?
Like Jimmy B said, like they're not reinventing the wheel here. Like they're not doing anything necessarily like new or innovative. But like it's a very like, I wish this movie would have come out closer to Christmas, but it is this streamlined like family comedy.
Bold choice, but I hope they hold strong. I mean, they've got a good chance of actually staying through some good numbers and then getting a nice boost in December. So maybe they'll do really well. I hope they break 100 again. But
I was reading a lot of the reviews were actually comparing this. Apparently, it's similar to Bad Moms 2.
Oh, right.
Yeah, like
I guess, yeah.
Which,
I
mean,
Bad Dads,
the moms
basically.
come. Yeah, I get it.
Well, they were saying like these two movies are like parallels to each other, and the fact that each one is now might be getting the threequel like treatment.
Oh, really?
Like they both got set up to like have a third movie. I thought that was.
This one, not really, but yeah.
I mean, I can't say like it was on purpose. Like it's just a really funny coincidence.
Yeah,
I guess.
that is funny.
But anywho,
No, I mean like
It's fine. Like Joe said, like that's not such a bad idea. Having a movie that's about like family at the holidays and tiptoeing around assholes. Like I get that, and that is a legitimate issue with a lot of families. Like you might really love this one family member, so you're going to do your absolute best not to call out the fucking asshole that they are with. Like, yeah, I get it. And everybody else gets it, and it's nice to cover that in a movie, but it also is unnecessary to make that asshole Mel Gibson.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
It's like what you could do,
like,
just as a suggestion, is do something like cast Doogie Howser to be the misogynistic asshole, like How I Met Your Mother, where then it becomes funny. It's like, oh, this is so completely opposite from the person that we know in real life that this becomes a joke, instead of this is just gross.
I mean, I'm sure they couldn't have planned it when they wrote the movie, but just the way like Hollywood is kind of
Well, sure, like I would imagine they wrote the character and it was probably just fine on paper, and then somebody said, we can really just go ballsy and put Mel Gibson in here.
Yeah, and then to have like Mel Gibson, like one of the biggest kind of douches out there right now, and with everything that's going on, it's like, oh, this is such unfortunate timing.
It's like, you're not going to go make a movie about, a sex offender and cast Harvey Weinstein in it. It's fucked up.
Yeah.
Just, you don't do that. It makes it awkward. I'm sorry, guys.
That's how you make it authentic, though.
Sure.
But yeah, like you were saying, it would have been nice to have at least one character aside from just Mark Wahlberg that was really actively like against Mel Gibson.
Sure.
Because it did seem like every single character was
Even quietly.
tiptoeing around. Yeah.
Like off screen, or like off his
Yeah, like
screen.
you get Will Ferrell like trying to pep talk Mark Wahlberg to get through this. But that is also like, on the other hand, that is his character. Like you see that in the first movie, which I watched, which Ethan didn't.
True.
So you get the consistent characters, and I really like the chemistry between Wahlberg and Ferrell. I like these movies more than the other guys, actually. Like, I wasn't a big, huge fan of the other guys.
I watched that once, I giggled, but I think this movie's fine. What we meant by a Sister Act 2 situation is Sister Act 2 is like a 16% on Rotten Tomatoes.
7. It's a 7%.
Holy shit! And it's like, that's the thing with Rotten Tomatoes, is when you look at that percentage, it's just like,
You think
everybody maybe gave it a 55% kind of thing, and there's just enough people that gave it a 55% that it tanked it down to 7, but it's not like everybody fucking hated this movie. It's just everybody thought, oh, it's not reinventing the wheel, it's just a perfectly fine, accessible holiday movie. So it looks way worse than it is. This movie is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fun. It's competent. It's enjoyable. Go watch it for the holiday season when you're bored.
It would be a good Christmas movie if it makes it there, which kind of seems like it will.
Yeah, I feel like.
I just looked up the Sister Act 2 rating, and yeah, it's a 7% on the tomato meter, but the audience
Which is absurd.
Audience gave it a 61%.
Like, nobody's going to say Sister Act 2 is the best movie ever made, but nobody's going to say, I really hate Sister Act 2.
Yeah, it's not on like Paul Blart, Mall Blart 2 levels. Like,
Daddy's Home did help me coast to a victory in Fantasy Movie League this week. It was the BP. I'm back on top
nice
overall.
Plug.
yeah, we want to give a shout out to Fantasy Movie League.
Joe just
They're a
patting
new
himself on the
sponsor.
back with 1,000 hands there.
All right,
man.
all right, Joe, shut up. No one cares about Fantasy Movie League.
No, everybody cares because I am back on top.
That's what she said. What would you
Reigning victorious over Ethan.
What would you
over Jeff?
What would you rate this movie?
Like a 6.5, 7.
We don't do halves.
I know. I'd probably round up to 7. Probably like no thunder. Yeah, I mean there's some good. As Ethan and I, we drove to Portland this weekend after we watched it.
Brag.
And there is this one.
Shout out for
there's
Portland.
this one. Yeah, I mean, there's this one scene. Sorry, this is kind of going away from ratings, but there's a scene where all the Christmas lights get stuck in that snowblower, and like just the effects of it,
Looks
and like visually,
amazing.
it looks great. So like, there's little stuff like that I'm going to think about, because you don't generally see generally in like comedy movies when they do something like that, they make it like hokier.
Yeah.
But it's like they were like, let's actually make think about like how would an action movie like do this scene, and then they did that. So yeah, 7.
Yeah. 7, no thunder. It's fun.
The longest road to say 7. All right. Well, where can we find us? Where can they find us?
You can
Facebook,
FaceTime us.
Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Like and subscribe, and also comment below. Request a movie. We might do it.
Yeah, emd.panspending.com.
Artificialwood.panspending.com.
Shout out to Fantasy Movie League, Portland,
Fantasy
Oregon.
Movie League. They should sponsor us, I think.
The big-
Portland,
No, Fantasy Movie
the
League.
city of Portland.
Thanks to Greg at the Big Smoke for requesting this.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you,
thanks, Greg.
We appreciate it.
Hold on. Also, Fantasy Movie League, you're going to get free sponsorship anyway as long as I'm on top. I'm going
Holy
to talk about it
shit.
every week. I'm going to talk about it if I'm winning.
I mean, our league is locked, but you can follow Joe, I guess, on Fantasy Movie League.
You can request to be in it. We're not going to accept you. Thank you and good night.